let's talk about the game tonight. Duke and Wisconsin. And right now, let's bring in Steve Wiseman of the Durham Herald-Sun. He is on Skype with us. Steve, thanks for joining us. I know it's a busy day for you, so thanks for carving out a few minutes. You surprised that Duke is playing Wisconsin in this game, as are most other people?
A little bit. I knew Wisconsin had the ability to beat Kentucky because they were so experienced. They played them tough last year. But the way the game came about at the end, when Kentucky erased the Wisconsin lead, got the lead, and then Wisconsin made the plays down the stretch the last few minutes, we hadn't seen that so far this year with Kentucky, even against a veteran team like Notre Dame. They made the plays in the last 10 minutes to win it. And so for Kentucky to give it up like that, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, Steve, before you came on, that it seemed to me like the veteran leadership, and it's hard to say that in college basketball anymore, even at Duke, but the veteran leadership of Wisconsin, having been there before, having Decker and Kaminsky and that backcourt that's veteran guys, that we saw that maybe there's where the freshmen really let down. After all this year, that the freshmen couldn't close out the game like the veterans from Wisconsin. Would you agree?
I would, and the one thing about Duke's freshmen is most of the time they've come through this year. There's been a few occasions, the 4 losses they have, that they didn't, but as a whole, even in tougher situations, when they won at Wisconsin, Tyus Jones was their best player. The game against Carolina and Cameron, Tyus Jones scored the last 9 points of regulation to get that game to overtime. So these guys have come up big in these pressure situations, and they've really, as the year's gone on, they've shown that to me that I wasn't sure they had that at the start of the year.
Yeah, Steve, are these freshmen on Duke? And let's face it, I mean, the core of Duke is freshmen. It's Winslow, it's Okafor, it's Jones. Are they just a more mature lot of kids that Krzyzewski has in place?
They look like they are. I mean, they wouldn't have gotten out of Houston if it wasn't for Winslow. I mean, he carried them to those 2 wins because Okafor only had 15 points combined in those 2 games against Utah and Gonzaga. So, yeah, and again, when the season started, people think, oh, was this the national championship team when the year started? They were ranked up there, but we didn't know what the freshmen were going to be until they got in these situations. And in fact, yesterday we talked to it with the players and with Coach K that the game at Wisconsin, when they went up there and won in Madison, was really the first time he saw these guys aren't afraid by the big lights and the big stage. They have something special.
Are you at all disappointed personally? Do you think there's an underlying factor at Duke that the team is not getting an opportunity to play Kentucky, an undefeated team?
I think they're separate from that. Personally, journalistically, I wanted to see Kentucky. I wanted to see Duke Kentucky on Monday night, see what kind of TV rating it would get, see if it would challenge the Magic Bird game, which is always the one that people hold up there.
Yeah.
Just from that point of view, and the fact that Calipari against Krzyzewski with an undefeated record on the line, wouldn't that have been great to write about? I mean, I still get to cover a championship game tonight, so I'm not totally disappointed. But yeah, I would like to see it be Kentucky.
But do you think the team now, to place your journalistic feelings, because people always ask us in Steve's same way, who are you pulling for? I'm pulling for me. I'm pulling for me and my story. But do you think that Duke and its coach and its players are disappointed also in not playing Kentucky?
I don't think they are. I think they can put that aside. They've shown the ability to do that. What they have to make sure they overcome is that the fact they beat Wisconsin already, and they don't let that slide in there about, hey, we already did this once, this shouldn't be as much trouble. And in fact, the Michigan State game was the same way. They beat them earlier, and they came out and beat them even worse this time. So they were able to put that aside in the Michigan State situation.
Hey, Steve, I think one of the storylines that's lost in Duke's run, everybody talks about Okafor and all the freshmen. Everybody talks about Coach K possibly getting another ring. I think lost in all this is Duke is playing unbelievable, like historically great defense. And we saw it against Michigan State. Michigan State got off to a hot start, and then Duke just shut them down. How good is this Duke team defensively, and can they do that to Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's a big thing. And so far they've shown they can do it against just about everybody. And this wasn't a great defensive team when the year started or even halfway through the year, but they became incredibly committed to it after Miami scored 90 points on them in Cameron, which was just shocking to everybody. It kind of shocked their system. They implemented 2-3 zone when they went to Louisville the next time, the next 3 days later for the next game. And that little wrinkle is what this group needed to really be cohesive defensively. And that is something that we didn't think would carry them to the championship. We thought it'd be the offense as well as they play there, all the weapons they have. But, boy, they're playing good defense right now for sure.
If Duke were to win tonight, is Coach K now the greatest college basketball coach in history?
Better than John Wooden, huh?
Well,
that's what you're asking?
Different worlds.
Yeah.
Different worlds.
It's an
different
interesting
times.
conversation. And you're right, Woody. It is different. I mean, Wooden didn't have to go through 6 games to win a championship like Krzyzewski's had all of his championships. And, now, Krzyzewski has 1,000 wins because they play more games now, right? I mean, he's been doing it for a long time, but they also play more games. So there's a good conversation there for sure.
Well, Steve, we really appreciate your time. One last question. Are you in a hotel room?
I am.
Yeah, because those are some ugly-ass drapes.
Oh, they are.
I'm glad you're not at home because I wouldn't have said anything.
I'm in Indianapolis in this wonderful hotel that I've been living in for the last week. So that's how it's.
Steve, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the game tonight. I hope you have a late deadline and an early ending game.
Very good. Thanks very much.
Steve Wiseman, he is from the Durham Herald-Sun. He covers Duke on a daily basis.